In practicing simplicity, Quakers hold that arranging one's life in such a way as to reduce tension, pressure, and hurry will lead to greater satisfaction, pleasure, and joy with our lives during our brief existence, and make us more fun to be around. Lord Whitehead famously said, "We think in generalities, but we live in details." I think that's true. I also believe that we have a finite number of details that we can process before they become too much for our well-being. If the devil is in the details, the fewer the details, the easier it is to get the devil off of our backs. Simplicity is a mindset of focusing on the details in our lives and limiting the sensory inputs we allow into our orbit in some rational way before they can negatively influence. How much and what influences and contributions we allow into our lives is the perusal of the individual. A thoughtful and contemplative person practicing simplicity will be able to discern what is best here, and most of the time will avoid getting trapped by things that harm our well-being. Because simplicity is first and foremost about the utmost importance we place on our well-being. And while simplicity is the default, the place where your life starts, modernity does everything it can to draw you into complexity and its attendant stress, anxiety, and depression. And I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think it is merely a phenomenon of modernity. And there are lots of things that I like about modernity. I like pain-free dentistry, antibiotics, vaccines, and laptops that make writing infinitely easier than with a quill pen and India ink. I like sanitation, clean water, and good hygiene. I like refrigeration, food that won't kill you, and coffee. I especially like the internet, where the entirety of human knowledge is at my fingertips. But none of what modernity offers comes without a cost. I think our testimony of simplicity proposes that we make an effort to enjoy these wonderful developments while maintaining our peace of mind by being mindful of what we are required to do to pay for these things. To be mindful of the details that together make our lives punishingly complex and whittle them down to a minimum. And of course, that is easier said than done. The ancient Greek philosophers had a beautiful word for the satisfaction that comes about through keeping one's life simple: eudaimonia. The best English translation of the idea that this word describes is human flourishing, because the remaining precepts of integrity, community, equality, and peace can only exist in an environment where the people themselves, the individuals, are flourishing. Aristotle said it this way: "We take what is self-sufficient to be that which on its own makes life worthy of choice and lacking in nothing. We think happiness to be such, and indeed the thing most of all worth choosing, not counted as just one thing among others." Well-being has a long list of attributes. First on that list is good mental and physical health. We cannot be good and loving husbands and wives and parents and contributing members of a real community if we are not in good health, and it is the individual who is responsible for their health. Loving relationships, pleasant friendships, satisfying and productive work we can be proud of, sustained by, and made secure with, are indeed near the very top of this list. All of these are the very essence of our testimony of simplicity as expressed on a personal level, and this implies the acceptance of personal responsibility for our well-being. The idea of simplicity is easy to embrace. Still, it is rather more difficult to disentangle oneself from complexity, and even harder to think for yourself, because the first step towards reclaiming a simple life is to reject all forms of self-destruction. And self-destruction often feels darn good. Human nature tends toward the self-destructive in mind-bending ways. Overeating, drugs, alcohol, and tobacco are undoubtedly the first things that come to mind. Often these are merely masking the stress we feel from social competition, overstimulation, overspending, overworking, traffic, insufficient physical activity, lack of sunlight, lack of darkness, and not getting enough sleep. It is not that the occasional indulgence is going to harm you in any meaningful way. It is the underlying anxiety, depression, and feelings of inadequacy that drive you to overindulge, compounded by the self-destructive nature of the indulgence itself that will destroy both your peace of mind and your physical health. In my preamble, I said that you must think for yourself. What I meant by that is you must always think in favor of your well-being and peace of mind, and you must act on it. Are you overeating? Why? What is the base cause of this self-destructive behavior that could very well lead you to a disability, an early grave, and leave your children without a mother or father? Find the courage to do something about it. Is it your job, commute, Boss? Find other work. Are you overeating because you are under a lot of stress from your monthly bills? Is your pressure self-inflicted? Well, if you live in the West, it is almost surely self-inflicted. Have the courage to act. Ditch your car, cell phone, turn off the AC, use a clothesline, do something self-constructive. Just start somewhere, anywhere, and put one foot in front of the other. My 95-year-old mother is fond of saying that life is hard by the yard, but it is a cinch by the inch. This is what I meant by thinking for yourself, for your own benefit, so that you might avoid self-destructive behavior. If you are overweight, drinking, taking drugs, smoking, driving like a lunatic, or stressed out about your monthly bills, or all of the above, there is a reason for that. Your life is just too darned complicated. I don't care how trapped you think you are, and you may well be trapped. There are actions available to you to meaningfully lower the amount of complexity you have to suffer through. Life will still demand that you experience excitement and exhilaration, joy and pleasure, hard work and achievement, reward and punishment, success and failure. The responsibilities of adulthood are an absolute requirement for a sound mind and a healthy body. Still, sometimes these responsibilities can seem overwhelming, especially when you are carrying around a load of bricks in the form of self-destructive habits. Practicing simplicity requires a situational awareness, being truthful with yourself and doing the best you can to avoid complexity while continually engaging in self-examination. Only you can know your circumstances, but there are some things that all of us have to deal with honestly. We are mortal. Life has seasons. Denying your mortality and the very real and inevitable seasonality of life is self-destructive. You must look ahead and try to imagine what the next epoch of the human experience holds for you. When we are children, our parents look ahead for us. When we become adults, that responsibility becomes our own. And the people who do not make this transition well will become desperate. And desperate people do desperate things. But desperation can be avoided by living providently. That requires some planning. But it is hard to avoid desperation when it is the people you trust the most, outside of your parents, who are leading you there. This is the end of Chapter 2. Hi, I'm Greg Jeffers, author of the best-selling book, Prosperous Homesteading. I'm an author, writer, blogger, and homesteader. This is my labor of love. My latest novel, 7 Years of Famine, is available now at Amazon. Thank you.